Now it's time for RTB 101, where we discuss practical questions to equip you to share your faith more effectively. And here to help me talk about a very provocative question is Dr. Fuz Rana. Welcome back, Fuz.
Krista, good to be here.
Now, you and I have been laboring and walking together for over 2 decades now in this apologetics endeavor.
Yeah, wow. Time sure passes fast, doesn't it?
We both remember we didn't have gray hair. I thought it would be fun for us to kind of peer into the future a little bit and talk about what's on the horizon. What do you see as emerging in the science faith questions? And I guess what I first want to know is, let's just start with the classic questions about origins of life, human origins. Do you think that those are still going to be big questions in the future?
Yeah, I don't think questions about origins are ever going to go away because everybody wants to know ultimately who am I? Where did I come from? Not, in a kind of a limited sense, but really in the big picture sense. And so the questions dealing with origins are those questions that address, I think, really heartfelt need that every person has about their identity, and that's tied in to, again, the question of origins. And both Christianity and science have something to say about those questions of origins. And we live in a world that's increasingly secular, increasingly turning to science to solve problems, increasingly turning to science to answer questions of origins. And many people think that science and Christianity are incompatible and that science equals the truth. And so questions of origins are never going to go away in the science faith conversation. And the exciting news is that the more that we learn about science, the more that we see evidence for God's existence and role in the origin, design, history of life, including the origin of humanity.
What shifts do you also see emerging? Like, what are some science faith questions that you're hearing coming up now, or that you're seeing? Right. This is coming. We need to be thinking about this.
Yeah, and this idea of thinking about what's to come is really very important. I'm not much of a hockey fan, but I remember hearing an interview once with Wayne Gretzky, the famous hockey great. And he was asked, what separates a good hockey player from a great hockey player? And he said, a good hockey player skates to where the puck is. A great hockey player skates to where the puck is going to be. And what that tells me is that when we're involved in these science faith conversations and we're looking to build a bridge to the gospel with them, we really need to be anticipating where that science faith puck is going to be and make sure we're there before the puck even gets there. Yeah. And from my perspective, what I see happening when it comes to science faith conversations is, again, origins are always going to be important, but there's also increasing interest in really how does science relate to culture and what are the ethical boundaries and limitations of science. And this is because we're developing capabilities through synthetic biology to manipulate organisms, to create artificial, non-natural life forms. And we also are seeing that same kind of capability now is allowing us to even contemplate modifying our own biological makeup as human beings. This is called transhumanism. And so this gives rise to all kinds of really provocative questions about what should we do, what should we not do. And I think as Christians who are interested in the science faith conversation, Christianity has a lot to say about those questions. And so it's important that we are engaging people where they are interested. Another big area of concern is the environment, and what does Christianity have to say about how we should treat the environment? So if we're not in these conversations, we're losing out opportunities. And what's interesting to me is that many of these areas also give us opportunities to address questions of origins. So when we're talking about synthetic biology, that it allows us to make a very interesting argument for God's role in the origin and the history of life. Or when we talk about transhumanism, it gives us a chance to talk about human nature. Or when we talk about the climate and the environment, it gives us a chance to talk about the elegant designs of the world that we live in. So we can connect the ultimate questions to these conversations.
That's really good. It also makes me wonder, maybe what are some areas that you see on the horizon that you really hope Christians will start researching or start speaking into, that maybe we're not quite there yet in terms of our involvement?
Yeah, well, I mean, for example, I see very little work being done in embryology, and I think this is an arena where we see enormous opportunities to develop new types of design arguments. And as we do that, it also gives us an opportunity to give new meat to the pro-life case from a scientific perspective. And so I think this is one area that really needs a lot more attention. Another area is the area of genomics. You know, we now have the capacity to sequence and characterize the entire genetic content of organisms. And what we're going to see, I think, is incredible new insight into the complexity of life. Our understanding of genomes is in its infancy, and as we learn more, I think there's more opportunities to make design arguments.
So maybe I'm imagining a young person, high school, college student watching this segment right now. Maybe you could offer them a word of encouragement to think about their future and what scientific endeavor they might begin to sow into.
Well, you know, science can be a calling, you know, for a young person where they can serve the Lord through science. But it would be neat if they were not only able to serve God through science by benefiting, you know, mankind, but also by making discoveries and advances that can be used to make a case for the Creator. And two areas I see real opportunity is synthetic biology, which we've talked about, but also an area called biomimetics and bioinspiration, where scientists and engineers are gaining insight into new technologies from the designs in biology. And so these are two of the most exciting areas in science where there's incredible opportunities for successful careers and interesting careers, successful or opportunities to serve people in our world, but also chances to make those discoveries that could be used to make a case for the Creator.
Very good. This is exciting. I love this conversation. And if you would like to hear more from Dr. Rana, I want to encourage you to go check out his blog. Go to reasons.org and search The Cell's Design.